What is up YouTube? I'm Royal, I'm rank 1 Wild Rift, and in this video I will take you from beginner to pro on Jayce. Jayce is a unique champion that has two forms. His ranged form that allows him to poke from a distance, and his melee form that gives him huge burst damage and additional tankiness. Unlike most champions, Jayce doesn't have a real ultimate. His ultimate is unlocked from level 1 and allows him to switch between his two forms. This makes Jayce one of the most versatile champions in the game since he has access to 6 different abilities instead of 4. Jayce is also a very flexible pick since he can be played mid and Baron lane, and sometimes even in the jungle. In this video, I will go over everything you need to know about Jayce. We will discuss Jayce's strengths, weaknesses, and gameplay. We will break down his abilities and his combos, and make sure you stick around for this section of the video because Jayce has so many cool tricks you can use with his abilities that even if you're an experienced Jayce player, I'm sure you will learn something new here. We're going to explain his build options and finally analyze some Jayce gameplay to apply everything we've learned. Let's start off with what Jayce is good at. Jayce has incredible poke in his ranged form, but can also easily kite out enemies and especially melee champions. Pair that up with his huge burst damage on his melee form and his knockback that makes it difficult for enemies to trade back, and you have a recipe for an insanely strong lane bully. Your goal with Jayce is to use your strong early game to begin snowballing. Look to pressure your laner and use your lane priority to support your team and get ahead. Your constant lane priority can be used to roam to the side lanes, invade the enemy jungle, rotate for skullcrab fights, or get deep vision in the enemy jungle. As you approach the mid game, Jayce is a great split pusher. It's very difficult for enemies to get on top of him due to all his movement speed bonuses. He can also take down turrets incredibly fast, so the enemies need to keep you in check. Jayce is also amazing at poking down enemies in his ranged form. You can use your poke to chunk down enemies before objectives, making it a lot easier to secure objectives or win the fights if the enemies do contest with low HP. Jayce doesn't ever fall off in the late game, but teamfighting with Jayce can be tricky. You mostly want to stay in your ranged form and DPS down the enemy front line until you have an opportunity to burst down their backline with your melee form. But be careful, you don't have a lot of tools to get out once you're in, unlike most assassins, and you're also not tanky enough to survive long in fights like most bruisers, so when you do go in, make it count. This all sounds great, right? Well, let's talk about his main weakness. Jayce is one of the worst champions from behind. Because you don't provide a lot of utility, and you're very squishy and not really tanky, if you do fall behind gold and you can't deal a lot of damage, you're not gonna be very useful. So it is critical that you don't make a lot of mistakes and maintain your advantage. Now let's jump to his ability breakdown. Now let's break down Jayce's abilities, and he has a lot. Between his two forms, he's able to have 6 different abilities excluding his ultimate, right? Let's begin with his ultimate and passive. His ultimate, which is unlocked from level 1, is what allows you to switch forms, right? So let's look at the bonuses on each form. So on your ranged form, when you switch from melee to ranged, you gain your first auto attack, does a little bonus damage, but also destroys or reduces the enemy armor and magic resist, and that's based on your bonus AD. So the more bonus AD you have, the more you will reduce the enemy armor and magic resist on your first auto attack. You also gain attack speed. When you swap to your melee form, you gain movement speed, and your next auto attack will do a lot of a lot of bonus damage. Your passive gives you the movement speed every time you change between your forms. So every time you click ulti, your passive is gonna give you movement speed. Additionally, when you're in your melee form, you actually gain more bonus armor and magic resist. So on my range form, I have 48 armor right now. Gonna use my melee form, and boom, 57 armor. And this is really useful when you know you're about to take damage, right? There's a Fizz or a Zed ultimate on you and it's about to pop. Make sure to switch into your melee form so you're a little tankier and you take less damage from those abilities. That's super important to keep in mind. Now let's break down what his normal abilities do. His first ability on his ranged form just throws a beam. And if you pair it up with your third ability, the beam gets longer and it becomes longer range and does more damage. Your second ability is an auto attack reset. Not a lot of people know this, but you want to auto attack and then immediately use your second ability to get more auto attacks off. But it pretty much gives you a huge bonus attack speed for your next 3 auto attacks. And what's really cool, and not a lot of people know this, is you can use your second ability, then swap to your melee form, and the auto attack bonus, so the bonus attack speed you get, still applies. Your first ability on your melee form jumps to the enemies and deals AoE damage. You see how it hits both of these dummies? Your second ability creates a magnetic field around you that just deals damage. And your third ability is your knockback, which is actually AoE as well. So you can knock back enemies, and if they're very close together, I believe you can knock back both of them, as you saw there. Let's get a more clear example as well. Boom, you knock back both of them. So what does your typical Jayce combo look like? Well, you always want to make sure that you're auto-attacking as much as possible, especially getting your first auto-attack off that does bonus damage and shreds armor magic resist on range form, or does huge bonus damage in your melee form. But from a far range, you want to use your first ability and then your third ability. What you can do, because Riot has made it very, very easy, is you can just use your first ability twice, and that's going to automatically use your third ability, just to make the combo a little easier for you. And after your initial first ability and second ability, you can use your force field that gives you movement speed when you walk through it, and your second ability, switch to your melee form, jump in while activating your magnetic field, get your 3 quick auto attacks with your attack speed bonus, and then knock them away. So I know this sounds like a lot and it's a very complicated combo, but let's see it quickly in action. That's exactly what you want your combo to look like. That's your main combo. Obviously, there's many variations. There's many little tricks you can do. So I'm going to go over a couple tricks now. With your first ability, keep in mind, it gives you vision in bushes, so you can use it to face check bushes from short or even long range. As I mentioned before, with your second ability, it is an auto attack reset. So make sure you auto attack and then immediately use it, especially when taking turrets. You pretty much get an extra auto attack off for free. Like I mentioned, you can go into your melee form and still get the bonus attack speed. On your melee form, cool things you can do is the insect, right? You can use your first ability, and as they're slowed from your first ability, I don't know if I mentioned this, but your first ability does slow, you can run behind them and then knock them back into your team. You can, of course, use it with flash as well. So first ability, knockback, and you flash behind them and you kick them into your team, similar to Lee Sin, right? You can use your first ability or your third ability and then flash, so they don't really have time to react to it. You can also use your first ability with flash, so you use first ability and then flash, and it's going to extend the range, and you can use it with your third ability as well. Make sure that you use first ability, flash, and then third ability, and you get the extended range again. So these are the main tricks and tips on Jayce. If you guys have any that I've missed, because I know that Jayce is a very complicated champion, has a lot of really cool tricks with his abilities. If there's any that I've missed, please comment it down below. And now let's jump into the build breakdown. Now let's break down Jayce's build. Keep in mind that builds can change with patches. This is the current best build and I'm gonna explain different options as well. However, if some items are buffed or nerfed in the future, that can change the build. If you want to know the most up-to-date build, if you're watching this in the future, with many patches having passed, join my community Discord. That's where you can talk to me and I will offer you the best Jayce build for the current patch. So let's start off with boots. With Jayce, you actually have quite a few options. Your most damaging boots are, of course, boots of dynamism, but you can also choose glutinous greaves if the enemies are quite poke heavy and you feel like you want some more lifesteal to stay longer in lane, but this will do slightly less damage. However, I am fine with both boots, both great options. Then, sometimes on Jayce, you are able to go for tanky boots, and that's if the enemies are very heavy magic damage or very heavy physical damage. Ideally, you don't do this unless the enemies are very heavy in either side. However, you do always have the option. So if the enemies have a lot of physical damage, you can go play with steel caps, and that will make your game a lot easier. However, you do want to be focusing on damage if possible. But this is always an option you have. While like mages, for example, right, they always want to go Boots of Mana, even if the enemies are full AD, right? But with Jayce, you do have the option. Your first item will pretty much always be Youmuu's. I've seen a few Eclipse builds, but Youmuu's is probably always going to be your first item. Then with your second item, you do have a few choices. Dusk Blade of Darkathar will probably give you the most amount of damage, and it works really well with your first ability, so you can get huge poke, right? I definitely recommend Dusk Blade if you can take it. Another option is to go Eclipse as a second item, or if you really need a spell shield, you can sneak in Edge of Night as your second item. For your third item, most of the time they're going Shirley's Grudge if the enemies don't have healing. If they do have healing, you're going for Moral Reminder. You want to get that armor penetration as soon as possible, especially if the enemies are quite tanky. If the enemies have no armor and like not many melee champions, right? Because melee champions by default get more armor per level than ranged champions. So versus melee champions, even if they're not building armor, you want to be going Moral Reminder or Shrildas. But if the enemies are all squishy, no armor, you're completely fine to skip that too. However, in 90% of your games, this will be the worth it third item. For your fourth item, if you haven't gotten Edge of Night yet, I do recommend getting it at this point against most comps. Edge of Night will keep you safe against a lot of things that can pick you off, against a lot of key engaged spells that the enemies have. Other great items that you can get are Black Cleaver. You can even get this as a second item, but if not, you should definitely get it as your fifth item or fourth item. Don't miss out on Black Cleaver. Sunder Sky is an okay item, however I don't fully recommend on Jayce. Styrax Cage is going to help a lot in late game team fights. Guardian Angel, of course, as a later on item, has huge potential because of its insanely good passive. If the enemies have a lot of shields, you can get this as your second or even first item if you're laning against a shield-based champion. Serpent's Fang is always a great choice. If you're playing against a heavy AD team comp, you can go for... I cannot find it. There it is. It's in my items already. Death's Dance, which is going to be very, very useful at mitigating a lot of that damage. And if you're playing against heavy ability damage, you want to be going for Mauve Malmortius. So these are pretty much all your build choices. If you just want a cookie cutter build, it's this right here. For your boot enchant, you're pretty much always going Stasis. Unless you really need Quicksilver, in which case you can go for the Quicksilver if the enemies have a lot of crowd control. Stasis does help you a lot when you go in and you do your damage to be able to stasis so your team can follow up. But if you really need Quicksilver, then you can go ahead and take it. You should be getting your boot enchant after your first 3 items usually. For your runes, again, you have a lot of choices. If you just want an easy cookie cutter build, this is it. Feel free to copy it. But if you want a deeper explanation, let's get to it. First Strike is the most versatile rune for Jayce because it gives you a lot of damage and a lot of gold. If you just want the damage, if you just want burst, then what you can do is go for the Electrocute, especially in mid lane versus a lot of these squishier mages. Electrocute damage in early game can be huge. If you're playing versus tankier champions, you can choose to go Conqueror to stack it up and go for these longer fights. However, Jayce is more of a burst champion, right? You're rarely sticking around for a huge fight. So your 2 real options, in my opinion, are First Strike or Electrocute. And the final option that I have been testing out and I think is decent is, of course, the Phase Rush. Phase Rush is the only rune that allows you to go in and actually have an escape. Because you proc it, you get the movement speed, and you get out of there with the movement speed. So Phase Rush is another option. However, I don't think it's worth giving up the damage and gold of First Strike or giving up the damage of Electrocute. For precision, you're going to be going for Brutal pretty much always, Coup de Grace or Giant Slayer if the enemies are tanky. And then finally, all 3 of the Legend bonuses are good. Your default should be Alacrity. If you want to get more lifesteal, Bloodline is a decent choice. If the enemies have a lot of crowd control, Tenacity is also a good choice. All 3 are great. For your last rune, you're most of the time going to be going for Bone Plating. If it's an exceptionally easy lane, you can go for the Inspiration Tree and get Transcendence, which is also going to be very, very useful since you can lower your cooldowns. Another option you have, if it's a super easy lane, is just straight up going for the silent impact to really help your burst on your melee form. Definitely not required, but if it's an easy lane that you just want to stomp, especially in the mid lane versus squishy champions, then silent impact is a choice. Lastly, if the enemies have a lot of CC, perseverance is also great. However, for the most part, you're gonna be going for bone plating to make your laning phase even stronger. In terms of summoner spells, you're pretty much always going flash ignite. In some matchups, you can go for exhaust versus something like a Fizz or a Zed or a Katarina. However, flash ignite should be your default. Now let's look at some gameplay and apply everything we've learned. So we're playing Jayce mid versus Heimerdinger. We want to be taking advantage of our early game power because Heimerdinger is definitely going to be outscaling us late into the game. Even though his laning phase is actually quite strong with his turrets, we have to be careful and play well around his turrets. So your level 1 on Jayce is extremely strong and we want to take advantage of that as early as possible. So we're going to immediately jump on him level 1, and since he can't really trade back other than his turrets, we're going to be able to do a lot of damage on him. And even though I missed both my first abilities, right, I missed the initial one and I missed the other one there too, he got blocked by minions, we're still able to beat him level 1. You just have to respect Jayce's early game. It's so unbelievably strong because even though I missed my ranged first abilities, right, I still hit my melee first ability because you simply have like a whole extra ability level 1 and you're an AD champion, so your all attacks do more damage level 1 as well. We're going to immediately recall. In this game, I'm actually going to be going for the damage boots. Since we do have an early lead and Heimerdinger is extremely squishy, we're going to just be looking to punish him hard. Just one-shotting him with our combos. So I think armor pen boots are the best situation here, and the enemies are pretty squishy in general. Gonna immediately jump on him again. Unfortunately, the turret range is there, so we're not going to be able to get many all attacks off. But again, it's a decent trade for us. He's back to half HP, and even though we've taken a lot of HP damage, we're completely okay with this because we do our damage first. So in a trade, if we're both low HP, we're gonna kill him before he can kill us. The wave right now is in a really good spot. It's slow pushing onto me, but I can still move because I still have a few minions. So I'm gonna see what's happening in the jungle over there. I am pretty low. I do want to get my honey fruit. And now the wave is nicely gonna slow push onto us and we can look for some heavy trades on the Heimerdinger. I want to be taking down his turrets as much as I can as well, which is kind of hard to do because if he hits us with an ability, we get hit by the laser. Gonna thin out the wave a little bit. We're gonna hit level 5 here too, nice. So the one weakness of Jayce is that now that we're both level 5, right, he unlocked his ultimate ability. And obviously I don't have one, so at level 4 I was way stronger than him. Now we're still stronger, but it's a little closer when he hits level 5. So he wasted his stun, and that gives us an opening to go in on him. We're able to get both his ignite and his flash. And now we can look for a snipe with our first ability. He did overstay for the minions. Garen is roaming from the solo lane, and Echo is there, so we're able to get a kill in a 1v3 situation, which is really good because they've committed a lot of resources in the mid lane, and if they don't even get a decent outcome, we get a free kill. Echo left, so I'm just gonna push the wave quickly so the turret ends up, or the minions end up under his turret. Garen actually roamed down because it seems like he's getting desperate probably. He's playing against a Caitlyn in the solo lane, which I'm assuming is very annoying for Garen because Caitlyn just way outranges him. Oh, my jungler is actually looking for an invade, but we are not there. Heimerdinger is gonna be there first. I'm base. Yeah, my Kayn is very overextended. I'm just gonna look to push mid. Yeah, he definitely shouldn't roam there while I'm based. Because I'm not gonna have priority, right? He went the one time where I don't have priority. Okay, looks like Heimerdinger is going around. We're trying to stop him from going mid. We're gonna be unsuccessful, unfortunately. But if your laner does roam outside like that, outside the lane, and you can stop them from coming back to mid lane and denying the minions this way, it's a very good tactic for Jayce. So we see Echo on the bush. Maybe we can do a sneaky play here. Yeah, he already based, I guess. Maybe I should have just tried to throw my first ability to cancel his base. Oh, our poke is way better than Heimerdinger's poke. Okay, he wasted his stun, so we do have a timer where we can go in on him. Whenever you're playing Jayce, right, you need to know what abilities the enemy team has and the enemy laner has to keep you from one-shotting them. And Heimer's only defensive tool really is his stun. So when his stun is on cooldown, we can kind of do whatever we want. So we're just going to slow push this big wave. He's using his turret. He's trying to push back, but I don't think that's a good idea for him because, again, he doesn't have flash. So if he overextends like that, oh, he's so dead. Yep, so he overextended. Again, he doesn't have flash, and we actually dashed over his stun, his third ability. And even though here would be a great idea to base and get my first item before turret spawns, I do want to get greedy and get some platings, especially since I got the Hextech toolkit that allows me to get turret platings. So I'm going to get a little greedy, and I'm going to be a little late to the objective, but that's going to give me like 800 gold from the platings in the wave. So I definitely think in that case it was worth it, especially considering that the enemy team is not going to be contesting us anyway. Okay, so they are going for Herald. My team's going for Dragon. Maybe we can actually stop the Herald. The Caitlyn is doing a lot of poke. Echo is very low HP. He doesn't have his ulti yet. Oh, he just walked into us. Perfect. Okay, Karma and Heimerdinger are coming here too, so this is a little scary. I'm trying to play it slow. Karma is a little overextended. Okay, I might be in trouble. I'm just gonna flash away. We do get the Garen ultimate though, so it's not terrible. If Kayn comes, maybe we can contest. Maybe Kayn can clean up. He doesn't have his form yet, and Kayn before form is so weak. He does manage to get one, where he's gonna base immediately, right? I don't want to stay there with 50 HP. I just want to recall, get my items, and get back onto the map with full HP where I can actually be useful. Because if I'm just standing around with 50 HP, I'm not gonna be of much use to my team, and I'm gonna be wasting our tempo and our momentum, right? So I'm immediately gonna go mid, push out mid, and look for turret damage while Heimer was still fighting and recalling, right? And that's gonna allow me to get the first turret. Why? Because I'm proactive, right? I'm using Jayce's great wave clear and fighting ability to make plays. Okay, we're a little caught out from the Echo here. I'm just gonna focus the Echo first, but he does have ultimate. We're able to one-shot the Echo, and we will go down, but we'll trade the 1-for-1, so it's not too bad. And we got the turret as well. So it's super important to be using Jayce's early game as I'm doing this game to bully our laner, make good roams, bully the enemy jungler whenever we can, right? And that's what we've done so far in this early game. Obviously, this death wasn't necessarily worth it, but we still managed to trade 1-for-1 and we did get the turret. So it's not all bad, even though we did give a shutdown, and that's the last thing you want to be doing. Now we can go to the side lane. Ideally, you don't want to stay mid too long after you take down the turret. You want to be going to the side lane and pushing those out. Jayce is a great side lane champion. And then you can grouping mid to look for poke. Oh, Garen is overstaying for a turret plating. And we're going to punish him very, very hard because we got Sherilda's Grudge as a second item, which I specifically got to counter the huge amounts of armor that Garen will be getting, especially in the side lane. If you notice, my team is also full AD, right? So we don't have a lot of magic damage, so I assumed the enemies would build a lot of armor. So I preemptively went armor pen, and I'm able to bully Garen really hard in the side lane, and of course the slow helps so much versus Garen too, because I'm able to constantly slow him. My team did get absolutely destroyed in the 4v4, all 4 of them went down, which is not great because now we're even, but maybe I can clean up Jinx here. Okay, I hit my first ability, and that's an easy kill on the Jinx, and that's a shutdown actually, that's big. Let's discuss the macro a little bit, right? We went bot lane, we cleaned up the wave, we killed Garen, we pushed out, then we went mid lane to rotate because Caitlyn rotated to top lane to make a play, so we got the wave mid lane, we didn't let Echo push down our turret, and then we went top lane to clean up as Jinx was overextended, right? Each decision there was made with a purpose. We weren't just roaming around the map doing nonsense, right? We're maximizing our time and getting as much gold as possible, which is your goal on Jayce. You farm really quickly, you want to be pressuring, you want to be using your tempo and momentum. I see Heimer and Karma very overextended. They walked right into me and I'm able to constantly slow them until my team can catch up. And we're able to get 2 easy kills, and now Jinx has no one to protect her, and that's a 3rd kill. Can we get a penta here? Any pentakill believers? Oh no, they're flashing away. We're going in. Wait, triple? Quadra kill? Someone stole my penta. Oh no. I think we didn't get the Either the Karma or the Jinx. But that's great play. My enemies did not respect the Jayce damage. They walked into me and were able to clean up 2 of them before the fight even started. And then obviously Jinx was super easy since she didn't have any support or front line, right? We're gonna push out the waves and look for a base. Unfortunately, we weren't able to really counter jungle there. It's still a little too early. The death timers are too low. But that's okay. We have 3,000 gold. We don't want to be greedy. When we do have large amounts of golds, we want to go base. Get our Edge of Night, especially when you're super far ahead. Edge of Night becomes an even better item because of its defensive capabilities. Our damage is already through the roof. The main thing we're concerned about is getting picked out. Edge of Night will allow us to avoid things like the Heimer stun or the Garen silence when we go in, so we're able to do our damage without being disrupted by the enemies. So we leave base again, we immediately pressure a lane, and Garen's actually here. We should able to kill him, honestly. I just need to make sure that no one is here. Okay, no one is here. We're able to easily take him down, of course, with our armor pen, and we're going to continue pushing. We actually saw Echo there, but he's no threat by himself. So we're just going to push out the wave real quick, hit the blast cone, and we'll need 100 gold for our next item. So I definitely want to get that as quick as possible. Let's clear one more wave and then look to get our Black Cleaver. Echo is actually here. We hit him with a slow so we can get on top of him. He ults immediately. We barely don't have the damage. He flashes away from our first ability. But that's okay. We got both his flash and his ultimate, which is some pretty important cooldowns. We're going to recall and get our Black Cleaver. And again, I don't know if you're paying attention to the macro, but I'm always pressuring lane, always pressuring something, always something that you can be doing with Jayce. If there's absolutely nothing for you to farm, you can always just go mid and poke with your first ability, which is what I'm gonna do here. Huge damage on both the Jinx and the Heimerdinger, chunking down their tanks, making it a lot easier for us to siege. There's always something to be doing with Jayce. So after you've pushed out side lanes, look for some good poke and look for the siege. So now the enemies have backed off, we can't really push, we don't have enough minions and they have a lot of wave clear, so we're gonna go back to pushing a side lane, constantly pressuring the enemy team. I see a lot of low elo players be afraid to go to the side lanes and get farm because they feel like their team is gonna end. And while that might happen, it's definitely most of the time worth it for you to be collecting farm than just dying aimlessly in different spots of the map with them. So Caitlyn is getting caught out, but we're kind of left alone with Heimer here, which is a really good matchup for us, so maybe we can actually kill him. Oof, look at that damage, we just absolutely one-shot him. And maybe I can even get the inhibitor. This is really greedy saying for the inhibitor. I'm hoping Galio will be able to ult me. Nope, never mind. Okay, so that was a little greedy. We're a bit overextended and Galio was not there in time to save us. However, we did get the inhibitor and Kalista should be able to get mid tower as well while the enemies are chasing the Galio. So overall, that's not too bad. This could mean that we lose Baron if the game was a little closer, so obviously that death was not great. But we did take the Heimerdinger with us, so it was a 1-for-1 at the end of the day. And we did get the inhibitor, so it's not too bad of a trade. However, when you're this far ahead, you definitely don't want to be dying. Every death costs a lot because first of all, you give shutdown gold, which can be a pretty big deal if it goes to the right person in the enemy team. But also you're off the map for almost a minute, so there's been a whole minute where I've been dead and not been able to farm or pressure the enemy team. You want to continue snowballing and pressuring, right? This is our best way to win. So if I'm dead for a minute, I can't do that. We push out mid and we see the enemies overextending the bot lane, so we're gonna rotate there. Gonna finish off the Garen. I'm actually just gonna go around to cut them off. Perfect, finish off the Garen. Get the Echo as well, and the Heimerdinger is very overextended. We're just gonna flash and wait for our first ability to slow him down and pick up another kill, and that's 3 kills. Now we definitely probably should be doing Baron, but maybe we can get both mid turret and Baron. Let's see. We don't really have the minions for it. I'm just gonna ping my team away. And another thing I really like to do when we pick up kills is taking the enemy jungle camps. So here I definitely should just be running to Baron, to be honest. Maybe a bit of a mistake to go for the Raptors first. I will get away with it probably, but it's a pretty greedy play. Even though we do get away with it and we get both the Baron and the Raptors, you definitely want to make sure you secure the Baron and worry about the enemy Raptors later. But we should be able to secure them. We're going to finish off our build with Sterak's just to get that late game team fight shield. Sterak's is one of the best super late game items to get because it gives you bonus AD based on your base AD, which is its maximum at level 15, right? So getting as a last item is really, really useful. So my team is going to push mid with a T-Hex. I'm going to immediately push top, so we're pressuring 2 lanes at the same time. But I'm going to look to group with them after I push this wave. You don't want to be wasting your T-Hex, you want to be grouped up and pressuring the enemy team. Oh, Echo, he halted for the red buff. That is very greedy, Echo. And even though we miss, we will be able to take him down. That was so greedy. And now we can siege down the enemy turret with a T-Hex. I'm constantly looking for a poke as well with my first ability, right? Especially with my cooldowns being this low, you constantly want to be poking the enemy team with Jayce. Because if they go back to base and they're not clearing minions, we're going to be taking those turrets. Oh, the enemies are going a little aggressive here. I'm going to one-shot the Karma, so it's a bit overextended. And now the enemies have to choose between defending this inhibitor or defending their Nexus. Kallis is already on the Nexus. And we can wrap this game up. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. And if you want more educational content like this, please comment down below what champion I should do next.